Hey free to play gang, welcome back to another video. So this is going to be the main event for today. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Javid. We're going to explore a little bit more about his kit as well. Take a look at his multipliers and how powerful he can be, and look at his claws, dude. Sharp. Let's take a look at his kit. Starting with his first skill, we have Divine Wrath. Attacks one enemy, deals up to 120% of its attack. Inflicts defense down, 100% proc chance for 2 turns if the target is afflicted with Judgment Seal. Now, deals splash damage to one random enemy unit if the target has a debuff. So we are also going to test out, hopefully I don't forget, we're going to test out his Judgment Seal, whether does it count as an additional debuff. Then we are going to splash instantly on the same turn. Now, this is what Judgment Seal does. When the target afflicted with Judgment Seal takes a hit from anyone, like I predicted, anyone, deals splash damage, also true damage, to 2 of their teammates randomly. Now the splash damage is 5% of their max HP up to 50% of his attack. So essentially, every single time Judgment Seal gets popped by like any incoming damage, right, whatsoever, the enemy side is going to lose 10% HP instantly. True damage as well. Triggers once per turn, and multiple Judgment Seal effects on different targets will be calculated individually. Now let's take a look at his second skill, Divine Might. I know it's a little bit longer right now. Don't worry too much about it. It's still quite easy. Attacks all enemies. The damage is 70% of attack. It goes up to 100% and inflicts Sear for 2 turns. Now deals extra true damage to targets afflicted with Judgment Seal, and the true damage is 10% of their max HP up to 100% of his attack. Now 50% chance of if inflicting Judgment Seal on targets not currently afflicted with Judgment Seal for 2 turns upon landing a crit. So the thing is, if the enemies cleanse themselves, right, so they do not have the Judgment Seal anymore, your second skill will still be able to inflict the Judgment Seal so long as you land a crit, and it's only going to land like 50% of the time. But it's still a really good way for you to have his debuff upkept this way, because as opposed to Embla and as opposed to Jiangman, his debuff actually only comes from his third skill and his second skill. It doesn't actually come from his first skill, which is a little drawback in my opinion. But good news, this skill has a 3 turns cooldown and his third skill has a 4 turns cooldown, so relatively short. You must max this skill in my opinion so that you can get the rotation for his debuff more frequently. If not, he's not going to do a lot on his first skill, which is the minor drawback in my opinion. I'm not sure is it a minor or is it a major drawback, but anyway. Third skill, Eternal Light. Gains Secret Flame for 2 turns. Now what Secret Flame does is dispels all dot effects from himself before he attacks. So that's already going to instantly remove all the dot effects on himself by using his third skill before dealing damage. And deals extra damage based on number of dot effects dispelled. So the extra damage per effect dispelled is 10% of his attack up to 50%. So essentially, by using Eternal Light, and if you have 5 debuffs, 5 dots on yourself, you're going to remove all 5 of that. Your damage output is going to be increased by 50% of your attack. Now here's the rest of Eternal Light. Inflicts Judgment Seal on all enemies for 2 turns first, and then you attack one enemy. The damage is 140% attack. Inflicts Disease for 3 turns, cannot be resisted, then attacks all enemies up to 100% of his attack. So a pretty good sizable chunk of AoE damage in my opinion, because if you think about it, he has 100% AoE nuke, but on top of that, this also comes with Judgment Seal effect. So you're instantly going to remove 10% HP on every single one of the enemies on average. So that's going to be 100% AoE nuke plus 140% single target damage, and on top of that, another 10% on average on every single one of the enemies. So that is pretty big DPS in my opinion, because on top of all of that, you can also use your allies to further your DPS output. And finally, his Captain ability is increases all allies attack by 30%, universal, very nice, it's exactly what you expected. Don't be fooled by his stats by the way, because I just don't have the good equipment for him to work right now. I think it's quite important that he has 100% crit rate just so that he can land his debuff on his second skill, but aside from that, it's just more of like his damage output. But of course, another way that you can build him is to probably not run him with a lot of crit damage. The idea is to just run him with a lot of attack power, give him decent speed, so that you're banking a lot on his debuff DPS, which it's kind of like the goal of my current build right now. I mean, I say it's my goal, it's just that I ran out of equipment, but hey, it still works. Okay, we're running short on time. Let's take a look at his Ascensions real quick. His Ascensions are really good in my opinion, right? He has flat attack, flat HP, very nice. He has 15% crit damage, 10% crit rate, and 20% attack. Very, very good for his kit. The attack power over here as the third upgrade is excellent. And I really love the fact that crit rate has a 10% boost, and his crit damage is going to go up by 15%, which is very nice. I think this allocation is actually perfect in my opinion, at least for him. But for most other Espers, it's probably going to be crit rate as the main priority, followed by crit damage, followed by attack power. But it makes a lot of sense for the Lion. Okay, anyway, let's take a look at his resonances. So R1 increases the third skill's damage by 10%. R2, Divine Wrath, which is the first skill, the number of targets taking splash damage is increased to 3. And now R4 heals upon killing an enemy. I don't think this is that important. Heals 30%. Eternal Light, the third skill, Sacred Flame, now dispels all debuffs instead of just dot effect. So I'm not sure whether would this then increase his DPS when he gets rid of a stun, for example, or a defense break, right? Whatever kind of debuffs that he has, will that increase his DPS? We cannot test because we do not have him at R6. Not sure would the wording of his debuff actually change as well. Oh, sorry, not his debuff, but his Sacred Flame. Yeah, not sure whether the wording here would change from deals extra damage based on dot effects to deals extra damage based on debuff effects cleanse. Okay, so we're going to test him out in several different ways. So the first way is just your typical AoE comp. So here is a team. I'll be using him with Unas as the AP pusher. I will have Dahlia, Jiangman, very typical, and of course Mona. And yes, before we get into that, let's take a look at Jiangman's multipliers, right? So she has 85% of her attack, and I'm not sure that this is her R6 effect, but she hits 3 random enemies. I always thought it was just 2 random enemies when the Nether Bloom explodes. So in terms of multiplier, she's actually far superior than Javid. But wait. Okay, so the thing is, Nether Bloom can only pop after the enemies take 5 hits, which is a lot of hits. It might take you a few turns just to pop the Nether Bloom, right? You need to have a lot of espers that deal AoE damage and multi-hits as well. So 85 times 3, that is like 255% attack power, right? 255% attack power on this debuff, as opposed to Javid, who is only 100% because you only damage 2 random enemies up to 50% of his attack each time. But the thing is, right, every single one of your attacks will actually trigger this effect to keep on proccing. So let's take a look at how good is Javid potentially, right? I'm not sure that this is going to be the best example because these enemies are only level 80. So we're probably going to obliterate them real quick. So we're going to target the cleanser here. It's probably like the main issue. Okay, in terms of DPS, 21k, we do not have crit damage on his kit, so that is probably the reason why. As opposed to Jiangman, AoE of 40k, but as you can see, we did a lot of extra true damage. If you didn't see, you can rewind a little bit. Let's use Mona for some AoE. We are actually... Okay, you know what? Let's just use our third skill to pop all the debuffs as well. All the Nether Bloom, right? Very nice. Almost wiped. Almost full wipe. Now, the thing is, if we attack this guy over here, she has the Judgment Seal, right? So if we attack her, that's actually gonna... Yeah. So in terms of DPS output, not surprisingly, Javid is actually doing a lot more damage than Jiangman because we have a lot of AoE attackers, and just any attack whatsoever will push Javid to do more DPS. Very similar to Ashley, right? So the thing is, Ashley's DPS output is not always because of her AoE attacks, but more so because she has a true damage portion in her buff, the Rainbow Bridge buff. So very similar in that sense. Javid is a very powerful AoE damage dealer. Now, test number 2, I want to find out what happens, okay, what happens when we have the Judgment Seal debuff on the enemies and we use our first skill and splash. Is that going to give us, like, I don't know, AoE defense breaks? Maybe, right? Who knows? So we are using Alice to hopefully land some assist with Javid. Okay, let's try this. Assist, nice. AoE defense break. So R2 I think is very important because that just gives him a 4-hit AoE defense break. Yup, crazy shit. I think this is really actually quite exciting. Now this we absolutely have to test. The twins, 100%. I think they have absolutely perfect synergy over here, and they also cover all the elements, right? So we are actually not going to use our AoE on Sienna just yet. We're going to attack up buff, all that. So I'm worried. Actually, you know what? We should have probably controlled the guy in the middle, right? Okay, we can absorb AP. Let's use our... Or shall we just stun, right? Okay, let's stun first. We can hit 4 times. Okay, wait, I mean, it doesn't matter the multi-hit. I kind of forgot about that. Okay, so it doesn't matter about the multi-hit, but the fact that we have a lot of AoE attacks, I think that's probably what's most important. So more AoE attacks here. Very nice. A lot of extra DPS. Love to see it. And final DPS, final AoE, I mean. Amazing. It's like simply... It's great. Wow. Okay, so the synergy here is very, very nice. Now, there is something else that I want to show you guys, which is the use of Javid and Genie in the same comp. So this is going to blow your mind a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens when Javid throws his debuff out. We actually... Oh my god, this person is going to cleanse everything, isn't it? Rip. Look at that. When they attack Genie, they actually get hit by the reflect. I mean, like the explosion, because when they hit Genie, they take true damage, and that true damage actually triggers the Judgment Seal effect on Javid, and therefore 2 of their allies, or rather two other enemies, will then take extra true damage based on Javid's Judgment Seal effect, which is, I think, a very interesting combo. Alright, so now this is going to be the final test. I need a control just to make sure that cleansing Esper stays still. She's probably like the main issue for me right now in this DPS test. So we are just going to aim her and run auto, see how this turns out to be. Now you should also understand that Jiangman has a lot of crit damage on her kit, which is further pushing her DPS output. On the other hand, we do not have crit damage on Javid because our equipment suck, and we do not really need the crit damage for his true damage to even for it to even matter, right? So we are using Lomian here for the double AoE as well, so that's another thing that that's another reason why he's here, aside from just the controls. Now, as you can see, we are completely out of Javid's debuff, which is a big problem. Major issue, right? Now his DPS is just completely scuffed. But on the other hand, Jiangman's DPS is actually still rolling because her debuffs just happened on all of her attacks. It's not quite the same as Javid in this case, because Javid needs his rotation, and like we talked about, his second skill does not have a really good proc chance for the debuff, and wow, I'm surprised that Javid is actually out DPSing Jiangman in this case. And I think this is probably going to be like the best showcase, or at least like the best example of comparing Javid with Jiangman. So even though Jiangman is able to upkeep her debuffs, whereas Javid is not able to do so, his DPS output is still pretty good. And the reason for that is just because whenever any of your allies attack any enemy with that debuff, he's already going to inflict true damage onto other enemies. So there you go, that's it for this video, I think. Javid is pretty damn good in my opinion. Very excited to get him for myself. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are you excited or not about Javid? What are your thoughts about his kit? Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Dairy Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.